Love Yours, an experimental podcast. Welcome back to Love Yours, an experimental podcast. I'm your host, Charlotte Tahira, and in this series we're exploring Black Girl Finance. Let's Talk Money by Selina Flavius. So you may be reading along as part of the book club, but you also may just be hearing my kind of takeaways from it. So last series was very emotional and I was doing a lot of self-work. So my self-love journey. But loving your life isn't just always emotional. You have to look at all the aspects. So this series, we're obviously Black Girl Finance, looking at our attitude towards our finances. Because let's face it, every day finance plays a part in our lives, whether we like to admit it or not. I mean, that word finance isn't great. So let's just say the word money plays a part in our life every day. So this is episode 4, but chapter 3, your net worth. Now, when I hear the phrase your net worth, I just straight away think of like Jay-Z and Beyonce, and like you just associate net worth with celebrities and like big public figures like your Steve Jobs or your Oprah Winfrey's. It's a scary term. You just associate it with the most wealthy people in the world. Obviously, I've Googled people and celebrities' net worth multiple times, just out of curiosity. But actually, what Selina talks about in this chapter is how you can understand your net worth. Because knowing that is really important to kind of understanding how your money works and your financial status and situation. So she talks a lot about the differences between assets versus liabilities. Now, when I hear this, straight away I've been like in the past, oh, my car is such a liability. Just costs me money to run, costs me money to maintain. But I've learnt a thing or two now about assets and liabilities reading this chapter, and actually a car would come under an asset because even though it does cost you to keep it going, it has a value. So anything that holds value, properties, cars, collectible art, I mean, how many of us have that? Jewelry, that's an asset. Liabilities are actually anything that you owe. So student loans, credit card debt, your mum, these are liabilities. But I still think you should be cautious of assets that can kind of be blurry, like a car, for example, because they're an ongoing expense. So Selina actually has an activity in this chapter where you can assess your net worth by listing all your assets and all your liabilities. But to be honest, I didn't do it because I know mine's going to be in the negative. Just my student loan by itself puts me in the negative. And I'm one of the lucky ones who went to university when tuition fees were still $3,000 a year. But I also know with the low repayments I've been making, I've not paid off anywhere near my student loan. I got a loan for my tuition fees, so that's at least $10,000. And then I got a maintenance loan, which from what I remember was about $3,000 a term. So 369, about $10,000 again a year. So that's $30,000 on top of the $10,000 for tuition fees. That's like $40,000. And that was before it was $10,000 a year. But straight away, because my loan outweighs my savings or any assets, I don't have that much jewelry. I don't own a house. I do own a car, but it's a Ford Fiesta that, let's just say, is I wouldn't class it as an asset. So I didn't do my kind of net worth activity that Selina set, but I think I will eventually, maybe once I'm able to pay off more of my student loan. And the student loan's such a tough one because it's not like having a bank loan, which I've had, or credit cards where they're going to write to you and stress you out. They literally just take it from your salary every month, depending on how much you're earning that month. And if you're earning below a certain amount, they stop taking it. So it doesn't feel like such a burden, but I do need to clear that off. And she also advises when you do this list, because you may do this list at home, and I think you should, of assets you have versus liabilities, date stamp it. So you put the date, you write down your assets, you write down your liabilities, you take your liabilities away from your assets, and that is how you find out your net worth. And as I said, mine would be minus, so don't feel too bad. But the point is to do this every 6 months to a year, once you've started budgeting, to see how your net worth changes. I still feel a little bit like net worth is something that I'm not in the financial position to be assessing at the moment, but it's good to know how to assess it when I get to that point. And I kind of just left this chapter wondering, this is a big liability I have that I kind of just ignore. Do I need to pay more attention to this? I'm still unsure. It's not affecting my day-to-day life, but it is a big liability that affects my net worth. So maybe I do need to kind of pay more attention to it. I mentioned in episode 3 in budgeting that whenever I have disposable income, I just blow it on family, friends, myself. But maybe I should be making more of a conscious effort to clear that liability of the student loan sooner rather than later so I can up my net worth. I don't know. I still feel funny about even talking about net worth, to be honest. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. And I'm going to wrap it up with a quote from Robert Kiyosaki, who's the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I hope I said that right. Rule 1. You must know the difference between an asset and a liability, and buy assets. An asset is something that puts money in my pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of my pocket. So even if you don't want to calculate your net worth, or you know your net worth is going to be in the minus like I do, maybe the first steps to improving your net worth is just buying more assets and avoiding liabilities. That's my final thoughts on net worth, because it's just a big, scary thing to deal with. But let me know how you get on assessing yours. Leave me a comment, and remember to subscribe, share, and I will see you in the next episode, where we'll be talking about your credit score. Another thing that people really hate to talk about, but we need to know more about it, how it impacts us day to day. All right, I'll see you soon. Speak to you in the next one. Love Yours, an experimental podcast